to demonstrate a little bit of divine wisdom that God has given to His children at the end of time in these trees. And this is a tree that was planted what we call the Ellen White method. She was given this method in a dream, and I came across this method when I was 13 years old, and every place I've lived from then until now, if I've lived there a year or more, I've planted trees this way. They've all done wonderfully well. This tree is a little over 10 feet tall, and it's just about 3.5 years since we planted them. Now, all of these trees were just 6 inches or so little twigs. These are sequoias, giant sequoia trees. They're little twigs when we planted them. Those that are planted over here are planted the way the forestry department recommends that they be planted. And the tallest of these is this one over here. It's about 4.5 feet tall. So this is about a little over twice the height. But when we look at the size of the trunks and the amount of foliage, we have at least 20 to 1 in mass, the amount of growth. And the same thing will happen with fruit trees, with tomato vines, with grapevines, and other deep-rooted plants if you plant them the same way. Well, we're at the nursery, and we're choosing fruit trees to plant. So when we are choosing a berry fruit tree, we want to look at several things. We want to go down to the graft and make sure that the graft is good, that we don't have. That's a good healthy graft there. We don't want scabs or dead places around it, but that's a good healthy graft, so that's what we need there. Now that is a green gauge plum. We'll make sure those roots are wet and kept wet. We don't want them ever to dry out in the sunshine or the wind, because that would damage this little tree. Let's go over here to a Santa Rosa plum tree. This tree, you see, has some bad places on it here, like this. I would not normally choose this tree, but this is the only Santa Rosa plum left, and it's alive. So we'll go ahead and buy it because we've been asked for a Santa Rosa tree. But I would rather have a healthier tree, like the green gauge there. Let's go over and look at the Fuji apple trees. Okay, here we are looking at the Fuji apple trees. And again, we want to look at the graft, make sure that it's a good, strong, healthy graft. And we want to make sure that the roots have been kept wet. If they're out in the sunshine or the wind, we could damage that tree. And in this case, I like this one because it's a nice, healthy looking tree. I prefer this over the split, the one that has 2 branches on it here. But it looks like almost any of these trees in this bin would be acceptable. This one looks particularly good to me, though. So we will choose this and take that with us. There. Can I take that tree right there? Thank you. Okay, we're going to take that tree.
Alrighty.
So this is the stuff you want, right? that's the stuff I want. We are in a compost pile. This is the grass clippings, the leaves that have been dumped here for years from this house. And we're fortunate to have it. It's good material there. But what we want to do is simply rake off the dry stuff from on top, and then what's underneath is beautiful compost, and that's what we want for planting that tree. It's got earthworms in it, and it'll just help our little tree grow like crazy there. We'll rake this stuff off, and it'll look like that next year, and be ready for next year's garden there. Okay, now we're looking for leaf mold, another good product to help us plant trees in the garden there. So go to where the leaves are accumulating, where they're heavy under the oak trees here, and rake off what fell last fall, last November, and then underneath that we have leaf mold. Maybe a little bit of soil with it, that's fine. But it's that material that we want that will help us in planting. And we'll just harvest this, take several wheelbarrows full of that, and that's a great material for us.
Look, the wheelbarrow man got busy.
That's okay. So if you don't have enough compost, here's nature making its own compost underneath the trees. If you have pine forest, the pine needles will decompose down. They'll make great amendment for planting your trees and your garden, for that matter. There. I think that's all we need here. All right, now yesterday when I was digging this hole, I noticed that there was a gopher hole right here. And we know that it's active because he's come and plugged this up. So we need to unplug this. We've got it pretty well plugged too. You know what, I need a spoon or some type of little digging instrument there. And we're going to use gopher wire to keep the gopher out, because the gopher will come in and he'll love to eat the roots of our little fruit tree, and very likely could kill it. If I don't get back there far enough, we'll not get the bait, the poison bait for the gopher, and it'll be useless. So I need to dig this out. He did a pretty good job of blocking that up. Boy, he's way back in there. Clogged it up pretty good. Okay, now we're to his hole. I got it now. Thank you, bud. We'll just put several spoonfuls of gopher bait back in there. And he won't come while there's activity. He won't come here, and of course we'll have this closed up. Okay, I'm reading from something that Herbert Clarence White, the grandson of Ellen G. White, wrote. He taught this way of planting for years, and I had the privilege of taking his class when I was 13 years old. Anyway, he says you start by digging a large hole. In this case, about 3 feet by 3 feet, 3 feet down and 3 feet across. We separate the subsoil from the topsoil. There, you can tell the difference in the colors there. And then in the bottom of that hole, we place a couple of pipes. The purpose for that is to get air in the bottom of that hole. Okay, now use what you have. I've used a couple of different short pieces of pipe for the air. We just throw those in the bottom of the hole. Another way to get air in the bottom of that hole is to take a gallon or so plastic rigid planting pot and just turn it upside down, and that'll get air in the bottom of the hole too. So let's just do that. Turn your planting pot, make sure it's sturdy enough that it won't collapse under the weight, and then when you put this down, if you can put a flat rock against it, that'll keep it from filling up with mud. But the principle is just that we have air in the bottom of that hole there, and that's more than adequate. Now we're going to start filling this hole up. We're going to use equal part mixture of the topsoil and compost and leaf mold that we collected from the property here. Or if you don't have it, you can buy it, but usually you'll find some stuff around your property that's usable. And then we want to get some manure in there too. And since we don't have any animals on this property, we did buy some manure, and we'll throw that in there. Then an ingredient which is very important is phosphate. Phosphate is the carrier to take all the other nutrients and put into the plant. And so we need to get phosphate, and the type I like the best is soft rock phosphate. If you can't get that, get some other rock phosphate. But make sure you have phosphate in your soil mix there. And another ingredient which is extremely important is calcium. And calcium is deficient in most soils in America today. We need the calcium in order to make what's called high brix food, or high nutrition food. And if the calcium is there, the produce will be sweeter and better and more nutritious. And so that's why we want to put some calcium in too. Okay, now here's our soft rock phosphate, and that's 2 cups, which is about 2 pounds. And we're going to want about 5 pounds in our mixture that goes in the bottom of the hole, and about 5 pounds that goes in the mixture on top of the hole. And you'll see that in the diagram there. But let's just mix this up. Okay. Now, when Ellen White was talking about dressing, she was talking about barnyard manure and the straw that comes out. She was talking about the leaf mold and the compost. Those are all called dressings. And what we want to do is mix this. Jeff, let's start mixing in the topsoil too. There. Matter of fact, let's, yes, if some of this starts falling in, it's okay. So let's take a shovelful of topsoil, and a shovelful of compost, and a shovelful of leaf mold, and we'll just keep doing that. Okay, this is pelletized lime or high calcium lime. And lime is, or calcium, is a nutrient that we absolutely need in almost all soils. So I've got a couple cups here. We'll mix this in. This will go in the bottom. What we're mixing now will go in the bottom 1/3 of that hole there. So we just mix this up a little more, Jeff. Now for the lime, you can use agricultural lime, which is dolomite lime. You can use gypsum, depending on whether you're in a dry area or wet area. You can use this high calcium lime that I just put on. If you're in a wet area, the dolomite lime is usually better to use because in wet areas your soil tends to be acidic, and so that will tend to neutralize it. If you're in a dry area, then you probably want to use the pelletized lime or gypsum, which will not change your pH in the soil there. Okay, I think we should start filling that hole, and I'm going to, for micronutrients in the soil, we're going to use some kelp meal. Now, if you don't have everything that I'm showing you today, don't put off planting your trees. You can add the kelp meal later. I'll also use some ocean water. If you don't have ocean water, don't let it stop you from planting the trees. You do need the phosphate and some calcium, and then whatever organic materials that you have available that you can